Every hardcore sales-oriented business I've worked for ends up failing.
It's not that you don't improve your product or make product decisions or do advertising or try and make sales. It's you don't start there.
I've worked with companies who had $150 million investment and had 250 employees worldwide in all these industries, and they became both product and sales-oriented, and it crumbled.
If you focused on awareness instead, you would make more sales.
Anyone who's customer-obsessed companies always do well.
So you might want to learn to work within that, or again, as we always say, if time to move on, sign the divorce papers.
Yeah. Pull the band-aid off.
Hello, Alex. How you doing?
Jack, good mate. Glad to be back.
We're talking again on the Push podcast. I'm excited to talk to you again. This is a fun one. I'm really excited about this episode actually, because this is a topic that's never talked about, but we're going to address why a marketer like you, the listener, you might be in a company and it doesn't quite feel right, and you just don't really know why. And I've got a theory about what it could be, not necessarily what it is, but what it could be. And this does speak to culture, but it speaks to something that Mark Ritson, a consultant, introduced to me around every company has an orientation. And what I mean by that, it's kind of like a focus or a way of operating. There's 4 main orientations that I've been introduced to, and you might be able to listen to this and go, okay, that company was market oriented, that company was product oriented, that company was sales oriented.
Was it the 4 orientations? What are the
There's 4? There's 4, yeah. So I'm just saying that someone might be listening to this and look back on their career and go, oh, that was there and that was there. So, and then where you are currently, you might go, oh, okay, we're orientated like that. And that's why it feels wrong. But that's also maybe how I can start to work within that orientation if I choose to. So it's the idea that a company will have a certain focus. Like it means that everyone within that company will ask certain questions and just be geared in a certain way. And I'm going to explain what I mean a bit better than that. But obviously the fish rots from the head. It's probably going to come from the CEO or the leader, that's their orientation, which will then probably filter down through the company. So the 4 orientations a company can have is I will tell the orientations and I'll give examples of what that might look like in the day-to-day or quarter-to-quarter. So 1 is a sales orientation. And that kind of sounds good to people because, we're a company, we need to make money, right? So good, sales orientation. What usually comes along with sales orientation is short-term thinking. How are we going to make sales this quarter? Why aren't we making sales this week? It's very short-term focused. And the problem with that orientation at times is that everyone in it is trying to cash in on the existing brand equity. Everyone's fighting for that existing brand equity because the company is so short-term focused and wanting to make sales this quarter, which we do need to make sales this quarter. But if the problem is, say, that you actually are converting quite well, but you have hardly anyone knows who you are, if you focused on awareness instead, you would make more sales. Now, sales, I say sales because it's a very tangible part of the buying journey. It's when someone's purchases, they give you money, you can see it very easily. But it also then means that people really focus on that last step. And then someone might need to go through 40, 50 steps to go, to buy. Everyone focuses on step 49 then. And everyone's fighting for that credit for that last step. So questions in a sales orientated company, they just are always talking about the short term. Always asking, why didn't you make a sale this week? Like unreasonable sort of requests, like an unreasonable time frames that can have. And those are some things you can look for and go, okay, we're pretty sales orientated. It's one. Another one is advertising orientated. So around what do we say? And, what campaign are we going to run? And that's an advertising orientated company will ask those type of questions. Why is that wrong? What's wrong with that, right? One of the examples where that can go wrong is, I believe it's Burger King, don't quote me on this, but I know there was an American burger chain who won awards. The creative was so good for it. The advertising was quote unquote great, but that advertising grew market share for McDonald's, a competitor. Why? Because they did great advertising, educating the market about preservative-free food or preservative-free burgers that, let's say it's Burger King, I think it was Burger King, but which they didn't sell yet. So they effectively, when they say, what do we say? They educated the market about a product that a competitor sells. So when you don't tie it back to a business outcome, and that's what you're always focused on, you can just start saying stuff. It might look good or it might be kind of engaging, creative, but it doesn't necessarily drive the right business outcomes. So that's another orientation. Marketers see it all the time. Let's do this campaign. Let's do this campaign. Let's do this campaign. It's very
surface level, getting the right attention and awareness as opposed to what are you trying to actually get to.
How's this driving business outcomes? Product orientation is the third one. What do we do with the product? Like, do we improve this feature? Do we improve this feature? Do we improve this feature? But not necessarily taking market feedback to then decide on that. Internally, just focusing on, okay, what do we do with the product now? What product do we bring out? A new product? Sitting around a boardroom going, oh, we could bring out this. A restaurant chain, we could bring out this burger. We could bring out this chips, or we could introduce a new product, like a software company going, okay, let's introduce this feature, let's introduce this feature. The point there is kind of like this circle jerk, like sitting around a boardroom, just deciding amongst yourselves what to do next.
Throwing shit at the wall, like what did you say that day? Google Plus. Yeah, Google Plus, the social media platform. Let's try this product. Why? For who? Why are we doing this?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like just very internally focused as well, I'd say. Which those three are. That's the ironic thing, is those first three orientations are quite internally focused.
What they think's right.
And I believe the superior orientation, so the fourth one is market orientation, or some people will call it customer centricity, where it's more about why aren't people buying? Why are people buying? And the focus and the questions are always on the customer. Amazon's famous for calling themselves the most customer obsessed business in the world. Whether they are or not, I'll let you be the judge, but that's a claim they make. But that would be that customer orientation.
Centric one, yeah. So there was always was it Zappos? You ever heard of the shoe company? There was a really good, actually it's on How I Built This podcast. Have you ever heard that one? Yeah, so he did one, he's passed away now unfortunately, but he was his founder and he did this on Zappos is an online shoe store, pretty sure it was in Vegas, in the US. Anyway, got to like $1 billion company, and he was he's a shoe company, and the thing was he was a person who owned two pairs of shoes, and it was like a work shoe and a fun and a play shoe. And his whole thing was he's like, I still don't give a crap about the shoe. He goes, I just got obsessed with customer service. And he was like probably the most customer orientated person, and he just used to get so obsessed and go through when someone's buying shoes, what's all the annoying crap that happens every single time, and of like everything from price and trying things on, and then they just every little tiny thing they tweaked around it, which I think. From that point, if you become customer success, in my opinion, the other three manage themselves or come out themselves, because you'll sell it in a way that makes sense, or people will want to buy from you. Your messaging will come through clearly, and your products will emerge as well. So
yeah, and it's very much these orientations about where you start from.
Yep.
Because with customer orientation or market orientation, customer centricity, you start with the customer. With product orientation, you start with the product. With advertising orientation, you start with the advertising. It's not that you don't improve your product or make product decisions or do advertising or try and make sales. It's you don't start there. You start with what feeds your business, which is the customer. Yeah. And this is the thing, because I think as marketers, that orientation is what allows us to thrive. And so if you are in an organization where that isn't the orientation, it'll be harder. It might help you to identify, like after listening to this, which company you're in, like which type of organization you're in. If you're consulting, you might be able to go, oh, okay, sales orientation. I mean, I'm not really suited to a sales orientated or advertising orientated for that matter. Probably not even product orientated, but I can feel that, short-term sales. When will I make a profit? When will I do this? Which I can't answer those questions. Like, could we do this campaign? When someone's just throwing campaign ideas at you, that's not for me. You know, some people might like that. I don't think it will bring about the best business outcome. If you're getting paid and you want to do that, fine.
Go for it. Yeah. And it's also, like, I mean, I think deep down it all has to be customer centric. I think sometimes I find with the bigger companies that where they've already built themselves on the back of someone at some point was a customer centric person, they've nailed it. And I think about places like Microsoft, right? I would say a lot of areas they're not customer centric. Like there's some pretty terrible experiences, but there's so much momentum and they have so much brand equity and so much trust, and they're so far along that they probably are more marketing orientated or sales or product, that they have that much money and runway. They can afford to throw crap at the wall to see what sticks. So they turn into some areas, and I've worked with some of them in these teams in Microsoft specifically, and they are super product focused and like things like AI and digital twins and all these big sexy things that you're like, my first question is always like, how is the customer advantaging from this? But they've got such a huge organization that they can afford to go, here's a crazy product, like with AI, where can we put this thing? I don't think it's a good approach, but you can afford to do that. But if you're a really small company and you're like, I want to use AI, I think go back a step, go back to the customer point. What's a thing you can solve for the customer and help them using the product? I think that'll show itself. And I actually think that's a massive issue with my world, the software world, that so much of the industry is hamstrung by, because they're taking products, product-oriented businesses, solution or whatever, and they're trying to fit that somewhere. I've heard nothing but horror stories with a lot of these AI products.
Yeah, okay. That is interesting, because I see that too. I see that with people just want to use AI for some reason, as opposed to like, well, but why?
Yeah.
What's it going to actually improve in your business?
Because I think it's boardroom crack. I think it's investor crack, because you go, AI, hire less people, do more things, hit a button, everything automatically happens. People with money just lose their mind and go, this is fantastic. Oh my God, I can run a whole business with AI. And in some areas, they actually is a really good use case. It all comes back to the customer use case.
Yes. Start from the use case.
Yes.
Where do you start? Yes.
And I've had people go, oh, you've got to lead with the product. And a couple of episodes back, we talked about Steve Jobs in the iPhone. It wasn't product, it was customer facing, but a lot of people read it as product orientated. So I just think, like, whether you like it or not, all success comes back to customer orientated.
Yeah.
You may start with product or sales or something else, but you have to go back to that point.
I would say on that though, that this is a spectrum still. It's not, I believe that market orientation is the superior orientation. It's not that the other ones can't work, because obviously they do. I just think they're inferior. And I think at the Microsoft level, whatever their orientation is, right? And this is a spectrum and all this. I'm not saying this is black, white, pink, green. It isn't the only thing. It's just a consideration. And I think there is a superior, a better orientation rather than a good and bad orientation.
That's true. And I mean, I'll say that too, around like, yeah, it is on that point. We'll switch sides. You be the diplomat, I'll be the other one. And I think I think my thing is, like, every hardcore sales oriented business I've worked for ends up failing, because to your point, they become so obsessed with dollars and revenue next month, and it's like, at some point, unless someone goes back to the customer and figures it out, that then influences the sales side of things, purely focusing on, we need more numbers, we need more leads, we need more deals, I can say with absolute certainty, and I'll die on this hill, it always fails.
Yeah, I would just clarify there, you're probably talking about smaller companies, right? Like a Microsoft might be able to do, like make a lot of mistakes, and they still can kind of trip and stumble, and because of their brand equity and their foothold and a few of their distribution, ownership, and just crowding out other people, other brands.
Well, I think in saying that though, I mean, I've worked with companies who had $150 million investment and had 250 employees worldwide in all these industries, and they became both product and sales orientated, and it crumbled.
Yeah, right.
Because it was just like, we need more sales, we need more traction in the market, and then of course, the question is, how do we do that? And then it was like, well, what do they want to hear? And then it trickled back down to what's the customer need? What are you trying to go after? And the product kept getting developed. Things like AI and predictable analytics and all these things kept coming out. But even the customers were like, okay, what do I get? Like, what do I do from that? And it was just, this is my opinion, right? Like, whether it's true or not, but I think you're right. It is a spectrum, and some people favor more than others. And again, I think it comes back to their strengths. But I think, like, at some level, there's the nucleus of the customer need, that when you nail it and then you become sales orientated, great, fantastic. Push those numbers, get out there, make some calls, send some emails, get those next quarter results up higher. I will say this: anyone who's customer obsessed companies always do well.
Yeah, I agree. That's my favorite orientation too. I'm going to ask in that situation then. So, was it really apparent when you were working with that company how internally obsessed and focused they were, and just that the customer did not have a voice at all? Is that how it felt?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Like they led with, and again, to go back to the AI point, it was a whole thing of like AI, empowered by AI, and we're using AI. And you look at anything, right? How many products do you have that you legitimately use AI properly? I mean, ChatGPT has a million infinite use cases. So, but there's things like Miro, Canva, Asana, LinkedIn, a couple that I'm thinking of recently. And there's not one that I use that when it says use AI here, that I go, well, that was helpful. Almost never. It always makes it more complicated and doesn't give me the answer I want. And there's one that only one, and again, this proves my point, or sort of backs up my point. The Hemingway app. Have you used the Hemingway app?
Yeah.
So a specific use case,
Yes.
specific solution,
Yes.
specific problem.
Yeah.
Using AI. So customer centric that uses the product.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. I have the subscription to it. I use it all the time. And for those who don't know, it's a simplifies what you're trying to say, like Ernest Hemingway, the famous author who creates context and simplifies the hell out of it. And they do that using AI. So you'll have a sentence you'll write out, and then it'll say this is at a reading level of postgraduate. And good marketing, like we always say, is clear and simple. So it'll come back with like a reading level of year 6 or something.
Yes. And you had, I think it was The Hustle was a content brand or media brand in America that was built, did quite well. They used, I don't know if they used that app, but they had a target of a grade 5 comprehension level. So everything that they did had to be that simple that it was that easy to consume. So anyway, we've got onto a specific app that we both like. I really like that app too.
But customer orientated versus the product. Like they feel like that they're an AI product that's customer orientated, not an AI product that's AI orientated.
All right, cool. Well, I think, if the takeaway, just maybe be aware of your orientation. It gives you another lens to look through a client or an employer through. Notice what it is, and you can decide to work within that. You probably won't change it. That's the thing too. Like, you're not going to change it. So you might want to learn to work within that. Or again, as we always say, it's time to move on, sign the divorce papers.
Pull the Band-Aid off.
Chat to you on the next episode.
See you then, mate.
Bye.